Hopefully you guys can hear me now. I am so sorry. Let's see. Can everyone hear me now? If somebody could. Okay, yes. I will apologize. I'll have to I'll have to re-say all that I was saying. My husband is normally the one doing all the technical stuff, but he is not here right now. And I thought I'll do this on my own. And of course I screwed up. I did not have the mic on, which is a very important part of doing a live. So let me try that again. So my name is Kayla Cox. I'm the owner of this here YouTube channel called 6 Miles to Supper. The reason it's called 6 Miles to Supper is that's basically how I lost 80 pounds. I walked 6 miles a day and I ate 1 meal a day, which was supper. There was a little bit more to it than that. That's just an oversimplification. Mainly, I just did intermittent fasting, 6 days a week, cheat day on Sunday, and walked 6 miles a day. I started out with longer eating windows when I was first doing intermittent fasting. Eventually, I got down to OMAD, 1 meal a day. And I liked that. I didn't really have faster results doing OMAD. I thought that I would, but I didn't. But I enjoy eating 1 meal a day. And so that's generally what I do in maintenance too. My maintenance goal is just to maintain in like the 140s. My like red line number for myself is 154, meaning if I go over 154, I'm technically overweight again. So I want to try to keep it under that for sure. 140s is where I feel really good. And so that's a little bit of my story. So in today's live, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about intermittent fasting, weight loss, walking 6 miles a day, maintenance, anything like that. And I also wanted to talk some about the end of the year routine I have and kind of going into the new year, what I do, and to kind of set myself up for success. I used to do things in kind of a bad way. To my mind, I would kind of do it like this. I would set really aggressive goals for myself, really aggressive, I would say, resolutions. I'm going to lose all the weight and I'm going to, do all these things. And by, February, like everyone else in America, I had pretty much given up all my goals and I would just go back to doing what I always used to do. And so in 2015, that's when I really started to get better at this. I changed like what I started to do towards the end of the year and at the beginning of the year. And so at the end of the year, one thing that I found really helpful is to do a year-end review, just to sit down and look back at what was happening. Now, of course, with weight loss specifically, I found this very helpful. So in 2015, this was, I've had enough moment in 2014. And so that first year, I kind of just floundered with weight loss. I just didn't have really a good plan. And I was really impatient. I was doing lots of stuff, but not really sticking with anything. And so then in 2015, I joined a gym and I was like, okay, I'm going to join a gym. I'm going to get this weight off this year. And by the end of that year, I had lost like 15 pounds. I had lost 20 and then I'd started to gain the weight back. And I was really, really close to quitting completely at the end of that year. And I didn't. And I think a huge reason why I didn't was because I did my year-end review and it gave me perspective. And so I think that's a really important part of doing this year-end review. And so I'm going to describe what I do. Basically, one thing I do is I read my journal, and I keep a journal every day. I write, there are days where I miss, but generally speaking, in the morning, I get up, I write down in my journal things I'm grateful for, some things that would make today a good day, things I need to do, notes about, what's going on in my life, and some goals that I have. And, that's generally what I do. Sometimes I have like evening journaling that I do, and sometimes I don't. But going back and reading through that has been really helpful because it gives me some perspective on what's going on in my life. And another thing that I like to do is to look back at my weight tracking spreadsheet. So that's another thing I do. In 2015, what I noticed was I wasn't, I had been tracking my weight, but also I had been keeping just notes in a spreadsheet about what I was doing, you know, like what was I currently doing at the time, and what was my weight doing. And so what I learned from that, when I sat down at the end of the year, I realized like I am not sticking with anything. Like I would quit, like every 2 weeks I was quitting whatever I was trying and then doing something else. And at one point I said in the spreadsheet, like intermittent fasting doesn't work. So I'm quitting that, which is so funny to me now, like looking back at that, because intermittent fasting was the thing that ended up helping me to lose the weight and to keep it off. But at the time I was just frustrated. But when I looked back, when I had that perspective, like when you can get some space and you can look down at a written record, I was able to see like, oh, actually the problem is I keep quitting. If I would have just held tight with intermittent fasting, I was losing about a pound a week when I was sticking with it. I was like, if I had just done that all year long, I would be down 50 pounds right now. But instead, I'm you know, the weight's going back up because I'm not doing anything. I'm not sticking with anything. So that was one thing I learned. A big thing that I learned by doing these year-end reviews was you got to stop quitting. You have to like stick with something for a long time in order for it to work. And sure enough, that actually happened. The next year, I just said, okay, I'm going to stick with intermittent fasting. I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm going to eat whatever I want. I don't have any kind of rules about like, oh, I gotta be low carb, nothing like that. I just eat the food. And so that's what I did. I just said, I'm gonna do intermittent fasting 6 days a week. I'm gonna take a cheat day on Sunday. So I'm gonna have the day completely off on Sunday. I'm gonna walk 6 miles a day. And that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna drink coffee whenever I want it during my fasting window, coffee with half and half. And so that's what I did. And I thought, and I'm just gonna stick with that. I'm just gonna stick with it and see what happens. And sure enough, pound a week came off that year, that next coming year, 2016. And by November, I was down where I wanted to be, and I decided to maintain. So, okay, so that is about the year in review. And one thing going forward, like, is, you know, whenever you do your year in review, that should hopefully help you to move forward in a better way in the coming year. And so, like I said, I don't do resolutions anymore. I just have goals and plans to get there. And so I would encourage you right now that if you're looking back at your previous year and you're seeing that you're like, you had fail, you can learn a lot from. Look at that and see what you can learn. See maybe the mistakes you made, and then when you're writing your plan for this coming year, use that information and don't be stubborn about it. Just like, you know, so many times people will say, well, I'm going to, you know, get rid of, you know, sugar. I'm not going to have any sugar. But then by the middle of the year, they're eating sugar again, you know. So instead, maybe just tell yourself, you know, I just have to learn how to eat the right amount of food, even if it's really sugary and delicious. That's how it worked for me, was just to say, I got to learn how to eat the right amount of all these foods. So let's see. Looks like we got some questions. So I'm gonna switch over to questions. And Danette asked, what about doing 2 meals a day between 12 and 6 p.m.? Like, would that work for weight loss? And I think absolutely. Anything will work. That's the thing. And they've done studies. Scientists have done studies of like a meta study, so a study of studies of weight loss. And what they found was every plan out there really works as long as you can stick with it. And certainly eating 2 meals a day can work. Now, if you eat too many calories in those 2 meals, like if you're eating more than what you're burning, you're going to gain weight. But if you're eating less than what you're burning, you're going to lose weight. And eating just 2 meals a day is a really good way to do that. A lot of people find that kind of thing really works well for them. In fact, a lot of people find that works better for them than OMAD, because for a couple of reasons. One, it's less weird to just eat twice a day, you know, like it's more of a normal life kind of thing. But also, some people find they're too hungry if they just go down to 1 meal a day. Like, it's like they feel like they have no control by the time they get to that 1 meal. And so if you can do 2 meals a day, then you're kind of coming to the food a bit calmer, and because you're calmer and you're not like overwhelmingly hungry, you eat the right amount at each meal. And especially if you don't have any snacks in between that, so you're just saying, okay, 2 meals a day, a lot of people find that works really well for them. The main thing is just to figure out what works for you. And like I said, some people do that and they have great success with it. I really like, just my own opinion, I really like the idea of doing like a certain number of meals a day as opposed to like windows. One thing about having the windows, like saying, 16-8, so 16 hours of fasting, 8-hour eating window. What happens oftentimes there is that during that 8-hour window, it's just like kind of like a free for all. And what can happen is you're just like kind of eating and stress eating, and there's less of a, or there's more of a chance that you're going to gain weight or not have success. But if you're just like 2 meals, it's just, I think, is better because it really does help you to not stress eat as much. Although if you're stressed out, and you have to eat that day, you may do some stress eating, even if you don't really want to. That's the tricky thing about weight loss, I think, is because we still have to eat. Okay, so Janet says she's planning to do a 12 to 6 p.m. window, which I think that's a really good window also, like 6-hour window. That can work really well because you're eating, like it's a short enough window where it's easier to eat the right amount. And it works really easily in your life too, because it's like, well, 12 o'clock is not too weird, to just eat your first meal at 12, and then also to cut it off by 6. A lot of people find that really works well with their digestion too. So, let's see. Daisy Chain says, I work nights, so finding it difficult not to eat through the night shift. Oh yeah. Shift work. That's tough. I've never been on the night shift, but my husband was for a while. And that was such a hard time. I just remember it was like we were always just on this weird schedule and he was always tired. And when you're tired, it is really difficult to eat the right amount of food. My biggest encouragement to you would just be try to figure out what works for you and do the best you can with it. My heart goes out to you though, because it is tough. It's just really hard. A couple of things that have helped me just in general with, the idea of like grazing. Putting a hard and fast rule with yourself. So in other words, I don't snack. Like you can just tell yourself, like, I will eat a meal here and a meal here. Like being more structured with your eating. That can help. Because it's really easy once you start grazing, at least in my case, when I start grazing, to keep grazing. And intermittent fasting, the good thing about it, or having something like 2 meals a day, just going to that idea of like, I eat 2 meals a day, so I don't snack. Having those things like concrete in your mind can help you so that you eat the right amount of food. In my mind, it's always just easy to justify that next bite. Oh, there's just a bite here, just a bite there, and then before long, I mean, I really didn't understand when I was obese, like, this is why you're obese, because you just keep eating food, like just bites here, bites there, here, here a little bit, there a little bit, and it ends up being a lot of calories, but it just adds up over time. So, I hope that helps you some. Let's see, Tiffany King, thanks for sharing. I've been slowly incorporating exercise, and I'm now excited because I know it feels great afterwards. Looking forward to seeing what my goal will turn into each day. You love walking. Yeah, sorry, somebody said that it's lagging, so I'm sorry that it's lagging. Hopefully that'll clear up. So yeah, the thing about exercise, just as kind of a, like, just to be aware of, the thing about exercise is when you're exercising really hard, and this is why I love walking combined with intermittent fasting. If you're exercising really hard, so put like, high intensity kind of workouts and stuff, that can really increase your appetite. And when your appetite goes up, then it's really hard to eat the right amount of food. And it's interesting, some studies that have been done on this, like, it's kind of like your brain just says, oh, I can reward myself. Like, you overestimate the amount of calories that you've burned And it's really easy to just consume that many calories. And sometimes people even gain weight, which is so frustrating. I know, like, because they're just hungrier. They're like, I'm just eating, to stop being hungry, and it's just too many calories. And so it can make it difficult to eat the right amount if you are combining like really hard working out with trying to lose weight. Which is why I like walking. To me, like just in my own experience, walking doesn't increase my appetite as much as, say, like lifting heavy weights does. I used to do powerlifting and stuff in 2015. I ended up hurting my back, which is why I went to walking in the first place. But one thing I certainly noticed was that year, man, my appetite was like through the roof, and it just makes it harder to eat the right amount. Yeah, so but finding what you like to do is really helpful. And I do miss powerlifting. I'm probably that's something that I'm looking into getting back into this year, very slowly and gradually. I don't want to re-injure myself. Anyway, so let's see. Jackie B asked, have you ever tried alternate day fasting? I have not, and I haven't really had an interest in doing it, like well, I'm interested in the idea of it. I feel like it's a pretty interesting idea, but it just doesn't work for me and my family. Like one thing about OMAD is that, okay, I've got one meal a day where I sit down with my family and we eat. And that's really important to me, that we have a meal together. We sit down as a family, no screens, no phones, nothing, just us and the food. And it's really important to me that that one meal is done every day. And so the idea of like, doing that every other day, I don't like that. If I were living alone, I could certainly see myself doing something like alternate day fasting. But just with my kids, I don't think it would be the best fit for my life. Although I know other moms have done it, but it's just not for me for that reason. So, I think that's all the questions for right now. If you have more questions, be sure to stick them in the chat. But I wanted to go over a little bit about going into the new year, what to think about for yourself, and what has helped me when it comes to weight loss. So one thing that was really helpful for me was to write down a plan, to physically write it down. And there's a lot of resistance to that idea. You'll probably find with yourself, like, I don't need to write it down. I can keep it all in my head. But what I found about trying to keep stuff in your head is there's a couple of things to that. One is it's really easy to keep stuff in your head and then it gets all mixed up about like, what are you actually doing right now? What are you actually committed to doing? Especially with intermittent fasting, it's really easy to say, well, I'm going to do intermittent fasting. But you're really vague when you say just intermittent fasting. So what do you mean by that? Like, how many days out of the week are you going to do intermittent fasting? Be specific with yourself. And if you have to write it down, and I would say you have to write it down, but if you do write it down, what that does is it puts it on paper, and for one, that makes it more real. And it also can remind you in the future, here is what I am committed to doing, and this is what I'm doing. It's easy when things are not going well to kind of beat yourself up and say, well, I'm not doing the right things. But if you can look back and say, well, actually, here's what I committed to, and I'm either doing that or I'm not doing that, it can just help take a lot of that emotionality out of it, and it can help you just stick with your plan better. It can remind you, okay, here's what I'm supposed to be doing. Am I doing that? And so if you write it down, you can do that. And another great thing about writing down your plan is that then in the future, like let's say 6 weeks go by, you've been doing your plan, you've been looking at your plan and saying, okay, yes, I am doing the plan. If 6 weeks have gone by and you haven't had any results, then you can say, okay, that specific plan that didn't work. Like it honestly didn't work, because I have this written plan. I was doing that plan, and then these were my results. And this is also why it's a really good idea to weigh yourself consistently, so that you can measure all these things. So you can say, okay, I started here, and I've been doing this plan, and then here are my results. Previous to all this, before, I would just think, okay, I'm going to do this plan. I keep it all in my head. I'm going to do this plan, and then I want to lose down to this amount of weight. And then it was like, I was trying to keep it all in my head, and then I always felt like I was failing, because I wasn't really keeping track. I could barely really remember, like, what was it that I weighed? I can't quite remember. But once I finally just wrote everything down and then kept track of it, then it helped me during those times, because your weight loss will plateau from time to time. It just happens. When you're going through a plateau, you can look back and say, okay, like, how long has it been since I haven't lost any weight? Well, most of the time, it's not even that the weight loss stops completely. It just really slows down for a while, and then it picks back up. And having data like that, written data, so weighing daily, keeping track of that number in some sort of weight tracker app or spreadsheet or a piece of paper and a pencil, whatever you need to do, some sort of written record for your weight, some sort of written record of your day-to-day life, like go get a journal and start keeping a journal, just to help yourself know. Like, a lot of times there's a lot of emotions that go with weight loss. Like, there are reasons why, and I would venture to say, in every case, there are emotional reasons why you've gained weight. And a lot of us just eat for comfort, and, food is really comforting. And so when you're stressed out and you eat too much, then it leads to a weight problem. I don't think most people just get, overweight because they just like food. There are other things going on, at least in my experience. And just, I've talked to a lot of people, and it seems like that's the case. So keep a journal, keep track of your weight, have a written plan so that you can check yourself against that plan, and so that you can tweak, because going forward, one thing that can happen is you start to say, okay, well, I'm going to change to this. And then if you can remember, because you have a written record, like, oh, I already tried that, and that didn't work. Like, I already tried, I don't know what I already tried a 16-8, and what, that didn't work for me because da. And then you can tweak, you can make small little changes, and eventually get to that plan that's going to work for you. So, again, remember, keep it really simple when you write it down, but be specific. 6 days a week, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to take a day off on Sunday. I'm going to, I'm committed to this kind of exercise. And when you do that, then it works out a lot better. Let's see. And I would encourage also you to go ahead and start your plan now. Like, go ahead and write it down and start implementing it now. I know that it's a couple of days before the new year, and we're still in the holiday season. But that can be a way to keep yourself honest. One thing that can happen, or at least this is how I was, is I would get really overzealous and overly optimistic about what I was going to be able to do as far as changing my eating patterns and stuff, what I would be actually willing to commit to for the long haul, not just like a couple of weeks, but just to really make permanent changes. And right now, in the midst of the holidays, is a really good time, because what you're committed to doing, because you see what you are going to eat like during the holidays, and kind of keeping yourself humble. I find that's really important, just to be like honest with yourself, like, hey, I like eating cookies, or I like this kind of food. I like bread. I like pasta. These are all things that I like. And so I want those in my life. I don't want it to be like, oh, we hit, November, and then I go off the rails because now I'm going to just eat all these things with the excuse of, oh, well, it's the holidays. I want to be able to just learn how to eat all the things throughout the year, so that there is no period of time where I just go off the rails. Let's see. Oh, Mad Revolution. Oh, hello. I am doing well. Hope you are as well. So let's see. Oh, one last thing, and then I think we'll probably be done, is when you are setting your goals for the new year, I would encourage you to set goals in various areas of your life, not just weight loss related ones. It is good to have weight loss goals. And and the thing about a number, like a goal weight number, is it is important to have a number in mind, because it gives you something to aim for, and you do need something to aim for. And the thing though about that is, you may not know. It's kind of like an educated guess. It's kind of like you think probably you'll know, like, yeah, I think if I get down to this number, that'll work. That'll be a good number. But it's kind of guesswork. So having that number in mind is a good idea. But then also having other goals that are not just weight loss related can help you with your weight loss. So for example, a couple of other goals that I have and that I will continue to implement are, I read a book a week. So 52 books in a year is really the main goal. And I break that down by doing one book a week. That helps me actually, or it really helped me with weight loss. And now I just maintain, but I still love this goal because I find it challenging. But when I would be in my fasting window, right? I'm in my fasting window and I have that habit of grazing and I want to, snack or something, but I'm not going to snack because it's my fasting window. Because I had that goal of, okay, I want to read 52 books this year, I would sit down and read instead. It would give me something to do with my time other than eat. And it not only did that, it gave me something to do, but it also, improved my mind. And it was something I'd, always wanted to make more time to read. And this gave me, it kind of worked with it. So you see what I mean? It's like a web. I think I've heard the habit web, but kind of having this, your goals work together, because when you can stick to your fasting window better, then your weight loss is going to be better. Same with my 6 miles a day. Because I was able to walk 6 miles and have that as a goal, then again, when I would be in my fasting window and it would be kind of like, I'm kind of hungry, or I'm kind of bored right now, what am I going to do? I'm going to go for my walk. It gave me like a reason to get outside, or just get up off the couch, or get up, away from the computer, away from screens and stuff, and go for a walk. So doing all those things, then, especially getting away from television and screens, also helped with stress levels too, which also helped me to be able to not stress eat and to not really feel that hungry during the fasting window. So things like that reinforced each other. And another good thing about having other goals that you're working towards at the same time is that it's not always going to go well. Like on the weight loss journey, you're just going to have weeks, sometimes like several weeks in a row, where no weight loss happens. You just, and maybe you're doing nothing wrong. Maybe you're sticking to your plan great, and it's just a little plateau. If you have other goals that you're working towards and that you're making progress towards, it can help that one thing that's not going right, which is weight loss, to not feel like the end of the world. And it can help you to stick with it for longer. So there you go. So that is all I have for today. Thank you guys for joining me. Also, I should say thank you to Jackie B. You said that you liked my book, The Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting. This book, The Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting. That's my book. It's on Amazon. I have another book. Actually, I have a couple other books. Escape from Moleshek's Castle is my young adult fiction novel, and then Overcoming Weight Loss Obstacles, How to Keep Going When Things Get Difficult, is a book I wrote about, weight loss obstacles. It's about the harder parts of weight loss, based on my own experience. It's got a lot of stories about all that stuff. And thank you, Andy Cruiser, for the super chat. That's super nice of you. Okay, so thank you guys once again. Going forward, I hope to do more of these lives, now that I know that I can halfway do this, if I can just remember to keep the microphone on. It's a very important thing to do. So thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you guys in the next one.